Hi, hockey fans, and welcome to the maiden voyage of Wild Wednesdays presented by Explore Minnesota. What a day to be alive, huh? We got hockey coming our way here this weekend, and we're all really excited about it. I'm Ben Gislason, Manager of Media Relations here with the Iowa Wild, and the man to the right of me on this screen needs no introduction. Longtime and celebrated voice of the Iowa Wild and Senior Director of Broadcasting and Team Services. That's a mouthful for me, Joe, but great to be on with you here today as we do it, of course, social distance. I'd love to have you next to me. Maybe down the road we can do that, but for now, we're social distanced. But no matter how we're doing this, it's great to be here doing this today, isn't it?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the long-winded introduction there, Ben. Unnecessary. Nice to have you on board with the Iowa Wild staff. We're lucky to have you taking over the media relations role. Looking forward to working with you. And some of our fans should know you, of course, from previous seasons, filling in on some broadcasts from time to time. So, yeah, let's do this thing. I positioned myself up in the press box. For the record, we're late because of me. I tried to pull last-minute shift the scenery, and it didn't work out, so I had to scurry up to the press box. So I'm up here, power farming. The agricultural show is down on the arena floor, which I would turn my laptop around, but that could get dicey. And you're holed up in right by the Zamboni area in your new office, which is more like a prison cell, but you can pull the fire alarm, it looks like, in the back if you need it, and we should be good.
Yeah, the backdrop behind me keeps the prison bars from being noticeable down here. But no, the Pyro Room has been treating me well. It's been great to be a part of the Wild organization. Thank you for the welcome. It's been obviously, like you and I have talked about at length, a busy time, but it's the fun type of busy, especially with how long we all had away from hockey over these last 10 months. But great to see people jumping on with us here this afternoon, and welcome to Wild Wednesdays presented by Explore Minnesota. No matter which route you take, they can all lead to your true north. Head to exploreminnesota.com today to check out all the North Star State has to offer. A little bit more on this show and what you're going to be seeing as we move forward. Great to see some of the comments and some familiar faces here throughout the hockey landscape in Iowa already commenting on our Facebook. If you want to ask some questions to either Joe or I, feel free to comment on our Facebook, and we'll get to those towards the end of the show. Sandwiched in between question time and where we're at right now, we're going to talk about opening weekend, a big weekend here in Iowa and in Des Moines, especially here at Wells Fargo Arena as the Texas Stars will be in town. We'll go between the hash marks with Wild Joe Radio to talk a little bit more in depth about not only the Iowa Wild on the ice, but the Minnesota Wild on the ice. And boy, there's been some fun hockey to watch up north of here in the North Star State with the Wild off to a good start this season. And then we'll get to some Explore Minnesota State of Hockey trivia towards the end of the show, something that I will, of course, love being a native Minnesotan. And Joe, I'll teach you a little bit more about that great state of mine. But I tell you what, I loved Iowa, too, being here. And we're both people that moved here for jobs and are, I wouldn't call it being held captive by Iowa, but have made it our home.
Yeah, transplants, that's the name of this business. Yeah. Look at all the players that have come here, staff members, and we love Central Iowa. Fans have been great. The community's been outstanding. Family and I have loved it here since we got here. And I do know a little bit about the state of hockey, but I need to learn up on some ice fishing. I think that's my next endeavor. I'm not going to partake, but just to educate myself a bit, I guess.
Well, today's trivia question is regarding fishing. So we'll get there towards the end of the show, but we should start with some opening weekend talk. The Texas Stars will be in town for 3 games, the third one coming up on Monday, but Friday and Saturday, 7 p.m. puck drop on Friday, 6 p.m. puck drop on Saturday. Texas Stars again in town, and we've got some great promotions coming up, as if just watching hockey wasn't enough. Friday night, there'll be $2 beers sponsored by 100.3 The Bus, and that deal will end at the conclusion of the first period, and $3 off Captain Morgan drinks all game long as well. Saturday night is happy hour, 2 for $12 tall boys until puck drop. So plenty of reasons to come out here to Wells Fargo Arena this weekend and not only see some of the best hockey you can watch in the world, but get some great beers and drink specials as well. Do want to address, if anyone has any questions about masks or procedures, they can go to our FAQ site listed under our tickets on our website. Masks will be required upon entrance and must be worn at all times unless you're taking a drink or a bite of food. And so make sure that we want to make sure we're following protocols, and it's imperative to us that we can keep playing, and that means that our fans cooperate, and we know it might not be all that comfortable at times, but things certainly haven't been comfortable for the staff or players to start this season yet either, Joe. So we're all doing our part, and we expect our fans to do the same, and we know they will.
Yeah, certainly. I'm seeing some comments that the volume's a little low on my end. We had that issue when we were testing it out. I will just try and yell more, maybe get the radio voice going. So I apologize for that. We're still working out some of the kinks here, hopefully by just raising I tried adjusting the microphone level, people. It's not changing anything. So I'll just try and talk louder. Again, there's nobody up here in the press box. I don't have to offend anybody. I know the players are excited. The coaches are excited. We got to go back to March 11th for the last Iowa Wild game. The last home game, February the 25th. And before that was like February 15th. So you're talking about almost a calendar year between Iowa Wild home games. That just doesn't happen. These guys have been playing hockey, a lot of them since they could barely walk. And since they were probably 12, 13 years old, playing almost every weekend for their, the rest of their lives, essentially. So for a lot of us, players, coaches, staff, the fans, this is a unique time. It's been a unique environment for everybody. And I think we're just excited to get back at it. Practice today at Metro Ice, one more practice tomorrow, and then we'll have the opener on Friday night.
Yeah, excitement is the word that I think it's really a buzz going on around here, Joe. You hit the nail on the head there. And again, fans, if you want to ask Joe or I a question, feel free to comment. We're already seeing some comments in there, and it's just great to be talking hockey again, that's for sure. And that's where we're going to head now, to head between the hash marks with Wild Joe Radio. And Joe, to start, wanted to talk about, yeah, exactly. He got you ready with your notes up there. Let's go. I want to talk about, you mentioned the longest stretch. Is that the longest stretch the Iowa Wild have ever gone without playing a game? I couldn't. It is, right?
It's got to be. Like I said, last game March 11th, last home game February 25th. Remember, 63 games last season, so 13 shy of a full regular season. The Wild had a magic number, if I want to say 4 or 5, to make the playoffs, and they were on the cusp of clinching their second consecutive playoff spot. It's a bar. I know there were no Calder Cup playoffs last year, but it would have been nice just to clinch, just so you could have said, you clinched the playoff spot in back-to-back years. Everybody knows they were going to, with one of the best records in the league, and 37 wins, which had tied a franchise record with still 13 games left. So I'm just really happy for this fan base, Benny. It's been a while, and I know on Friday night, Saturday night, and Monday with the Texas Stars here, get a chance to welcome everybody back in a safe environment. I know they're going to be loud, and I know that the capacity is going to be around 3,500 or so max capacity, and I'm expecting us to get darn close to that, if not, fill it to the brim, so to speak, for these first 3 games.
Let's talk north for a little bit. Let's talk Minnesota, because we don't have a whole lot about the Iowa Wild that we've seen to talk about yet, but we do have a lot to talk about with the Minnesota Wild. They're off to a great start, and there's a lot of familiar faces to Iowa fans down here that Minnesota Wild fans are getting accustomed to up there, because not only players that are in the lineup night in and night out, but guys that are contributing, especially when you look at the top 2 scorers on the Wild roster right now, Jordan Greenway and Joel Eriksson Ek. But that's only 2 guys, to name a few, Joe, and I know you got plenty of names you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, but the top 6 scorers from last year's team aren't here right now. We're not expected to play opening weekend. That's a total of 284 points from last year's roster. That's a lot of goals. That's a lot of assists. But it's opportunity. It's opportunity for younger players to step in here in Iowa. And for those guys that are up in Minnesota right now, they're getting a great look, a great experience. I mean, there was no NHL preseason. And usually Jerry Mayhew, Kyle Rao, Luke Johnson, Connor Dewar, Brandon Duhaime, Mason Shaw, guys like that, Matt Markowski, Louis Belpedio, guys that were always pushing for a spot, they would get an NHL game or 2 in the exhibition schedule. And there wasn't that opportunity. So guys had about a week of practice to make their mark. Minnesota, I think, believes that it's important for the young guys to play. So they kept some older players on their taxi squad. But it's been nice to see Mayhew, Rao, and Johnson contribute recently with the big club in real, meaningful NHL games. But down here, it's going to be a younger roster. And I think that's going to be the case across the entire American Hockey League. But, when you're talking about your top six scorers not coming back, almost 300 total points, there's a lot of opportunity here for guys to either make a mark in their second or third pro season, or maybe their first year with the organization, or some fresh-faced, and I mean fresh-faced rookies that are here that in a normal AHL season wouldn't be able to play here due to their age. But the league's made an exception this year. So there are guys that are 18, 19 years old here in Iowa that are going to get a chance to play at least to start the year.
We're already clicking on all cylinders, Joe. You're segueing perfectly into my next question, so thumbs up. Talking about some of these new faces, these younger players, that there's a lot of high draft picks here. Not that we don't normally see high draft picks down here in the American Hockey League, but like you mentioned, with a lot of junior hockey right now not playing, you are seeing much more of that younger exuberance into the Wild lineup that we're going to see this year compared to past years. We don't have time to talk about all the new faces because there's a lot of them, but who are a few that maybe you've got circled on your depth chart right now?
Well, Caitlin Addison's going to get a lot of time along the blue line this year, and probably some power play ice time. He's a former second-round draft pick of Pittsburgh, and he was acquired in the Jason Zucker trade. So Minnesota, from a long-term perspective in that Zucker deal, got Addison and a first-round draft pick, which they'll use in this upcoming draft. They'll get the Penguins selection. Obviously, Alexander Galchenyuk was also part of the deal. He helped Minnesota on the interim basis last year, but Caitlin Addison is a kid that has a ton of offensive upside. It looks like he's going to get some time at least to start with Ian McCoshen as his defense partner. McCoshen's a new name to Wild fans, but he's a veteran defenseman. He has time in the NHL, so it'll be nice to see how the younger Addison and the older McCoshen work together. But from a forward standpoint, fans will know Connor Dewar and Brandon Duhaime and Dmitry Sokolov, Mason Shaw and Will Bitten. Assuming they return from Minnesota, they're up on the taxi squad right now because Minnesota's been ravaged with injuries. But I think that when you talk about Damian Giroux, Mitchell Chaffee, and Adam Beckman, right now they're slotted to play as a line together. Beckman is the reigning WHL MVP, the Western Hockey League MVP. He was the leading scorer playing in Spokane. Again, he's a guy that wouldn't be eligible in a normal season. Damian Giroux is a prospect that Minnesota fans have been waiting to see turn pro. Out of Saginaw, the OHL. And Mitchell Chaffee comes from the collegiate ranks. He was a free agent, undrafted college signing by Minnesota late last year. And he's a guy that can fill up the back of the net. So that will be an exciting line if they stay together and play together opening night. Beckman on the left side, Giroux at center, and Chaffee on the right side.
Let's go back towards the crease. Kaapo Kähkönen putting up great numbers right now at the National Hockey League level, and he got maybe even more time than anybody expected when Cam Talbot went down earlier this year. Talbot is back, but Kähkönen certainly didn't play himself out of the crease, that's for sure. He's been a great part of that early success for the Minnesota Wild up top right now, but it does mean that there will be some openings down here in Iowa with who's going to take the reins in goal after the best year we've ever seen from a goaltender in Iowa Wild history, Kaapo Kähkönen last year. Having a stupendous season, winning the Baz Bastian Award for Goaltender of the Year. But who are the guys right now that the coaches are focused on that are going to take the reins from Kähkönen down here in Iowa?
So there's three goaltenders here right now, Benny, as you're aware. It's Joel Rumpel, just signed to a PTO, played a little bit in Kansas City at the ECHL this year. He'll be sort of that extra goalie to start the season. One positive test for COVID, one injury, one whatever in Minnesota. And Rumpel could possibly, get to the bench or see some time. Hardcore Iowa Wild fans will know a little bit about Derek Baribeau, big French-Canadian goalie who played in 4 games for the Wild last year, got his first career AHL win down in San Antonio, I want to say around mid-December. So he had a cup of coffee with Iowa last season, but mostly he was in Allen, Iowa's ECHL affiliate, the Americans down there in the AA League. But Hunter Jones is the big name. He's a second-round pick in 2019. He's a big kid. He's young, just 20 years of age. 31 wins in the OHL last year with Peterborough. I expect him and Baribeau, obviously, to compete for the starter's job. Early on, you may see them rotate. Again, 3 games in 4 days to start for Iowa. But the big wild card is up in Minnesota. I mean, if Alex Stalock continues to progress and returns to the ice, is it Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kähkönen? Is it Cam Talbot and Alex Stalock? And then Kähkönen's on the taxi squad. Does Minnesota want Kähkönen to play more, so he ends up here? Does Stalock come down here? There's just so many variables. Andrew Hammond who Wild fans will know from the playoff run a couple years ago, was signed to provide depth in the organization. He's up as the taxi squad sort of emergency goalie right now for Minnesota. So the organizational depth chart is deep when Stalock gets back, and that could be in the coming weeks.
Sounds like the answer to every question that you get right now during the COVID-19 pandemic is things could change. It's yes, so many variables, but nonetheless, the depth of goaltending seems to be something that the Wild do have right now, which is obviously a huge bonus to have in your organization. And I'm sure all the way up to the top, Bill Guerin happy to know he's got goalie depth, and the Wild have plenty of that. Speaking of depth, go ahead.
Benny, the comments, the chirps have stopped about my low volume. Has yelling helped at all? The comments have stopped. So I don't know if people just logged off. They were like, "Uncle, I can't handle it." This was a pretty good chirp from Corinth Bartholomew, and I don't know if that's a real name or not. But he wanted to know where I got my Happy Meal microphone.
I was going to bring up that comment.
I didn't bring a real microphone. I'm using the computer one. But typically, if you're going to get anything with a Happy Meal, it comes from McDonald's. So my answer to your question is my Happy Meal microphone came from McDonald's. Can you tell I'm not in the mood to be chirped right now?
Crystal clear. It's coming through.
All right, so fire a comment if yelling has helped. Otherwise, I'll stop yelling and I'll just be quiet the whole time.
You have any halls up there? So, some tea to make sure that your voice doesn't get sore. Hey, you're a pro.
I'm ready.
Moving on, I want to touch on not only we've seen lots of player movement, but we've seen some coaching movement as well from last year, Iowa up to Minnesota. Freddie Chabot up there with the goaltending coach now position with the Minnesota Wild, as well as Brett McLean. Talk about what those guys meant here, and I know what they're meaning to Bill Guerin and Dean Evason and their staff up in Minnesota now.
Yeah, Brett McLean has been getting rave reviews when I chatted with Bill Guerin, Minnesota Wild GM, the other day for my podcast. By the way, check it out, shameless plug, one-on-one with Joe O'Donnell.
It's so good.
Platforms. The conversation with Guerin I thought was outstanding. He's just an easy guy to talk to, and he's won 4 Stanley Cups. I mean, his career spans so many great teams and organizations. But I asked him about, Jordan Greenway, who you mentioned. He said he's been their most consistent player in the early going. Talked about Kakkonen and how he's filled in nicely with Cam Talbot on the shelf there for 10 days or so. But from the coaching staff perspective, he said that Brett McLean kind of checks all the boxes, right? He communicates well with the players. He's got a great personality. He's detailed in his approach, and obviously played in the NHL for such a long time and had a long pro career in Europe, etc. So he understands what the players are going through. So a lot of rave reviews early from Minnesota with what Brett McLean has brought to the coaching staff. And Freddie Chabot has experience, obviously, working with Kakkonen. I believe he knows Talbot from their time in Edmonton. I could have just made that up as well, though. But replacing him won't be easy because he had been a guy that had been here the last few years as sort of the Iowa Wild goalie coach. He did some scouting as well. But Richard Bachman comes in, a guy that played 11 professional seasons, time in the NHL, a lot of time in the American League. Again, I go back to the hardcore Iowa Wild fans, but they should probably know Richard Bachman from his time with the Texas Stars. And so he's a new goalie coach here. And on the bench this year, it's just going to be Tim Army and Alex Tanguay. So there'll be a coach shorter than the previous seasons. We'll see how that, sort of plays out. It'll be more responsibility on the specialty teams. Typically, your head coach is, overseeing everything. And, depending on the scenario, the assistants will handle one of the specialty teams units. Last year, Alex Tanguay worked the penalty kill and Coach McLean ran the power play. This year, you're going to have just Coach Army and Coach Tanguay. So there'll be some specialty teams work sort of a little extra on each of their plates. But I'm expecting, this team not to miss a beat. Coach Army wants to pick up where they left off. It'll be a younger team, but full confidence, obviously, organizationally in this coaching staff, despite being a bit undermanned.
Seeing the name Richard Bachman come up for a kid like me who grew up in Minnesota, where at the time the WCHA was hockey religion, and watching Colorado College and Denver duel those years was just phenomenal. And Bachman was a huge part of some really good Colorado College teams, coached by Scott Owens, who has some Des Moines ties and is actually back in with the GM of the Des Moines Buccaneers now. So he's a guy that I know is big in the Des Moines hockey world. And to see Bachman come in and bring what he's brought, and to see him working on the ice with the goaltenders when we've been able to see him out on the ice here at Wells Fargo Arena has been terrific. So without a doubt, it seems like it'll just be one man leaves, another guy steps up and gets the job done. And Bacher's done a great job so far from, I know, the perch that we've been watching from, Joe.
Got a comment here about my lettuce. The haircut is scheduled for later today, so it'll be fresh for opening night for all you concerned.
It's one of the few places we can go, right, Joe? It's the doctor, the barber, the grocery store, and the bank. Yeah, I think those are our 4 options. So enjoy it.
We're pretty much quarantined.
Yeah.
I will say this, when you take out the trusty headset, you probably don't have this problem, Benny. But when after a couple of periods, if the hair is too long, I get the flat middle, and then so it's a disaster. So I tend to like to trim it up before the season starts to get less headphone hair.
That's why I went for the flat look. I know what you mean, but yeah, mine shields in enough, or it shields in enough. But yeah, I see where that could become an issue. That's for sure.
You'll have to worry at some point about the grays.
They're coming.
So good luck with that. Now that you're in your 30s.
Yes, and not quite. I've got a few more months. Close. If you round up, I'm there. 29. Yeah, almost. I know. Although if we keep working weeks like we're working right now, I'll have gray hairs soon enough.
Yeah.
Anything else, Joe, before we turn the page on Hockey Talk and do a little state of hockey trivia for our sponsors, Explore Minnesota?
Yeah, let's jump into Minnesota a bit.
So I'll be curious if you know this, and I'd love to hear what the fans think too on this. And if anybody can answer without using Google, I'll be impressed. I couldn't, and I mentioned earlier you were talking about ice fishing, Joe, and I swear I wrote up this question before you brought up the ice fishing comments, so we're just really on the same page already, which, again, we're clicking today. I'm loving it. In the state of Minnesota, Baudette, Minnesota, claims to be the walleye capital of the world. And walleye, Joe, is a type of fish, because I don't know how knowledgeable you are about fishing, but... Sure. That's a valid point. So you know it through hockey, not from actual walleye fishing experience?
I don't eat it. I don't fish it.
Oh, you're missing out.
I did once upon a time work for the Idaho Steelheads. There's also a junior team in the OHL, the Mississauga Steelheads. So I know that the Steelhead is a fish as well, based solely on the logo and the team I worked for 3.5 years.
Got it. So the walleye capital of the world, Baudette, Minnesota, is home to a walleye statue which is 40 feet long. What is the name of this walleye statue? And again, any comments, anybody's got this answer, feel free to throw it out there. Joe, what's your best guess?
No clue, and I'm sure that answer is incorrect, but you had asked me, could we do like a prize, and I tried to get a hold of our marketing folks last minute. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but they didn't answer their office line at a very pivotal time, and I needed them like that. So let's just give away 2 tickets to opening night for whoever gets this answer correctly. You'll just have to give us your name, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we can start there.
We'll just put them at the box office.
Yes.
I'm going to get in trouble for this because it's a COVID world, and I don't think this is not approved. 2 tickets. Opening night, first correct answer. They will be at the box office under your name, or you can hold me accountable.
All right, there you heard it. You can hold Wild Joe Radio accountable if those tickets aren't there. That's the guarantee. That's an ironclad guarantee too. So again, the question is, the walleye capital of the world, Baudette, Minnesota, is home to a walleye statue which is 40 feet long. What is the name of that statue? If you can comment the name correctly, if the first person to comment correctly on this Facebook Live feed will get 2 tickets to the home opener this Friday. Should get to some fan questions while we let people, I'm sure, Google this answer. We can go back to the beginning. A big hello to everybody that jumped on here this afternoon. Did have a question about if there's going to be any kind of a Calder Cup this year or any kind of a playoff. I don't think we've gotten any word from the league on that, Joe, but you may know different.
Yes, I have the answer. Tim Army has given the answer. Michael Russo has reported the answer. He's from The Athletic, but I probably should steer away from giving it myself in case the league doesn't want that out there. But There will be some type of playoff. I don't want to say much more than that. Unfortunately, it will be slightly disappointing for the hardcore hockey fan. It's just not going to be your typical war of attrition, best of sevens. Let's play this whole thing out. So I think I could say all that without getting in too much trouble.
I think that's fair.
We do appreciate all the fans tuning in, though, and fire us questions. We'll answer as many as we can. And we're going to do this weekly. It's Benny's idea. He used to do it once upon a time. He said he knew how to handle it all technology-wise. He did not lie. He delivered 100%. And I'm sure at some point we'll run into a hiccup or two, but we want to make this a regular thing.
Oh, minus your volume. That's on my back. We'll work on that. Minus your volume. I'll take a notch on that one. We'll give our fans some more time to answer this question because I don't think we've seen the correct answer yet for the walleye statue in Baudette. But Joe, is there one? And I've asked this to a couple of players too, and I've had the opportunity. Is there one or two things in particular that you are most looking forward to? Little details about game night, about hockey being back. Obviously, the puck drop is big, the first goal big, but are there certain details that you specifically are looking forward to?
I think just the fans back here because I know it's going to be a very unique thing. I've heard that Grand Rapids might have 500 people, but that's new. That's not something that I've known for a while, and I don't even know if it's true. Texas is going to have fans, but Chicago and Rockford will not. The Wolves are playing out of their practice facility, so it's going to be a very different year for the players, coaches, myself, the staff. So I'm excited for being here in the booth Friday night and just getting back, on the air. Probably knocking off some rust the first couple of minutes, but I think it's the crowd, it's the goal horn. I've always, as a broadcaster, fed off the sound of the ice and the emotion of the game and the crowd. And so I'm hoping that we just have as boisterous a group as possible in here on Friday, Saturday, and Monday. Let's kick this season off right. Please be responsible. Don't get kicked out of the game because you refuse to wear a mask. That just, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Just do what you're asked. Make it easy on our staff. We'll put in so much time and effort behind the scenes to pull this thing off. And as we've inched closer here, I'm starting to feel more like hockey, and I'm pretty pumped for that.
Yeah, I think two things that I think about, and they're weird things. One, the sound of a puck hitting the plexiglass in warm-ups. It's a little thing, but that's going to be a big, okay, we're officially back. You know it, because I swear some of the guys purposely missed the net to get that sound. I know when I played I did. Maybe I just had a bad shot. I don't know, probably a little bit of both. But that, and then when the lights go down for starting lineups, those two things, pregame stuff, the build, that to me is just, it's going to have the juices flowing. So I'm super stoked about that. It's going to be great.
I'll add one more thing, Benny, because you talked about, the intros and the hype for the game. I got a preview of the intro video today from our production company, Trilex. They're outstanding. We've known that. The intro video, given the fact that there was limited availability to shoot the players, record the players and all that stuff, the intro video is awesome. Again, goosebumps type thing. So that got me a little jacked up, to be honest.
So we do have a correct answer from DJ Palmer, who answered correctly. The 40-foot walleye statue in Baudette, Minnesota's name is Willie Walleye. So congratulations to DJ. Please shoot us a Facebook message to our Facebook page, and we'll get you squared away with 2 tickets to the home opener on Friday night. So congratulations to DJ, first prize winner on our Explore Minnesota State of Hockey Trivia. So thanks for playing, DJ, and thanks everybody for tuning in. One more question to get to, and then we'll probably sign off. From Andrew Holmes, he wants to know, Joe, and this might be a hard question. I know it's a hard question to answer. Who do you think will be the player to watch this year for the Iowa Wild?
That's a great question. I will give you Connor Dewar. Didn't score a lot last year, but really made big strides. And he's a kid that by the end of the year was getting power play ice time. We know he can kill penalties. We know his compete is through the roof. It's my understanding that him and Brandon Duhaime had as good of a camp as you can have in Minnesota. And again, they weren't the recipient of a preseason opportunity to really show what they can do. But I think that as this year moves along, they'll be on the short list for NHL call-up opportunities. And if not this year because of the craziness, definitely the following year. So Connor Dewar 1, Brandon Duhaime 1A. Let's watch those guys develop. They're both Minnesota Wild draft picks. They both have gone very different paths to get here. Dewar out of the Western Hockey League, Duhaime from Providence College. Both got their feet wet last year. They're big, strong kids, and I expect them to take massive steps this year. And I guess I'd also add Cody McLeod. I mean, we didn't mention the big fella, as intimidating as it gets at any level of hockey. Great leadership, 37 years of age. He's been around the block, and he's the type of guy that will keep this group together through what's going to be a roller coaster season. A lot of protocols, a lot of hoops to jump through, a very different year for these players socially and away from the rink and travel-wise. And let's just hope we stay safe. Everybody is able to stay healthy, and we get this season, all 34 games, we get them in.
You bring up Cody McLeod, and I think it was day 2, I was scheduled to interview him for one of the local news stations in town, grabbing some footage. And I'm usually not nervous walking up to ask people for interviews, but when it's Cody McLeod and you grew up watching him do to people what he did to people, I wanted to make sure I gave him all the options to not do the interview if he didn't want to do it. But he was terrific, and he was just so kind about it. But that was such a funny note for me early on, is walking up to him. And boy, usually though, when you meet those guys, those tough guys and those enforcers, they're just the kindest guys, right? I mean, so many times they are. And Cody McLeod, at least in my early experience, has been another example of that.
Yeah, I'm excited for you, Benny, to get to know a lot of these guys as the year moves along. I know you had great experience in the USHL, and you cross paths with people from time to time that, obviously are NHLers. But at this level, it's so focused on by the NHL as far as the development league. The scouts that come through, the brats that come through, the people you'll have a chance to interview and work with. I think you'll find it pretty exciting stuff, and start to cross off the list of some of those people that you watched and now you get to work with or you get to interact with. It's pretty cool stuff. I mean, for me, Alex Tanguay is a guy I watched a ton growing up. Avalanche and Stanley Cup game-winning goals and stuff like that. And so sometimes just seeing him around the locker room, man, that's Alex Tanguay. I used to watch this guy play almost every night. So you'll get plenty more of that down the line. And yeah, Cody's a special guy and really fun to be around.
Boy, it's fun to be talking hockey again, isn't it?
Yep, sure is, brother.
Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of our journey here today. Thanks again to Explore Minnesota for presenting this. And again, we're going to try to do this every week, time commitments willing. And maybe if we have a game on a Wednesday, which you might have a couple, we might move it to a Thursday or a Tuesday, but we're going to try to do it every week. As Joe masks up, I'll mask up too. A reminder before the weekend, if you're coming to the game, throw on a mask. Mask up, and when it's a 7 o'clock puck drop on Friday night, Texas Stars are in town for 3 games. You can get your tickets at iowawild.com. Joe, any final notes from you?
$2 beers on Friday night.
It's back.
So get here early because that promotion does not last all night. So $2 beers, come out and have some fun. Tell your friends hockey's back. Really excited for Friday night. Benny, thanks for setting this up, brother, and looking forward to connecting with you again on Wednesday.